the latter session was one session that ran double the length of the usual think tank sessions. It was one conversation that everybody that was around the room, around the virtual table, as it were, was prepared to carry on, because the conversation had only just got started by the time we'd normally kind of be wrapping up, and we all felt it was a vitally important session. So this is something that we'll be promoting, these white papers. Again, if you're a fieldservicenews.com subscriber, you'll be getting emails about these white papers across the coming weeks, and we phased them into 3 key areas. The first of these key areas was impact. Then we looked at reimagining our field engineers' roles, as Kieran touched on. Jed made a great point, and that was something that I know he's said a long time ago. But we'll touch on that in a moment. First of all, let's look at what the actual impact was and how we assess the damage. A couple of quick quotes, and then Kieran, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, because you were instrumental in opening up the conversation on this session. But let me just go through the quotes on the screen. So Alec Pinto, Alex, the regional service manager for the DAC region and high growth markets for Laker Biosystems. So again, working in the medtech space. Alex said, from an operational perspective, we had to, let me put my teeth in. From an operative perspective, we had to work. Sorry, there's a typo there which threw me. My apologies. We had to continue, but we couldn't go out anymore. So we had to start getting used to the new regulations very quickly. Suddenly, we were putting our people in areas of risk. So imagine that part of the operation and ensuring safety while letting our employees feel secure. That was a big challenge to overcome. And Raja Kakar, Raja is on the executive board representing services for IBM across the EMEA region. We saw a massive shift. Companies who have provided services for people to migrate from their offices to buildings, for example, they were very busy. They didn't have enough people to bring the office equipment, set it up at people's homes, and set up home offices. Whereas companies which are primarily working on standardized services, IT services within the corporate environments, they simply didn't know what to do. Kieran, like I say, you actually put the question across right at the beginning of this session, to understand and get a barometer of how much this impact had hit. I mean, for reference, we were just starting to approach the end of lockdowns at this point, so it was a really nice barometer where we were able to see how these conversations had evolved. Perhaps, Kieran, you can just kind of give us your thoughts and also your reflections on the kind of the conversations that were rotating around that table in that initial gambit.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, for me, it was quite interesting listening to everybody's view, and I mean, we gave them a rough 2 minutes to try and give a view of what the current situation was about, but it was that important or passionate to them that 2 minutes was nigh on impossible.
Yeah.
So it was really quite interesting, and Alec's points. I mean, there's your statement there, but it's the other bits that Alec said that really sort of made a difference. We know med device companies, or some med device companies, are really it's a horrible thing to say, but they really thrive through this pandemic because it's their business, it's what they do, and I don't mean that to disrespect in any way, shape or form, but they've done well because of it. And then we have the other businesses that have done really bad because they just can't, no one's using their products, there's no services to be done, it's a very different environment. And for someone like Alec, who was sort of in the middle, where he was saying about it's the aspect of where they were doing that hospital work, where they had to stay open. It was even the confusion that if a technician went into a hospital to do some work, then the schedulers were asking, do they need now to quarantine for 14 days because they've been into a hospital? What's the rules behind it? What's the game plan? And the HR element that came into that with how do we look after the technicians? What happens if they've got dependents at home, like old people, elderly people, parents, grandparents, etc., that then put them at risk. So that level of detail really sets an understanding of what the challenges are. And then Rajat, I mean, he spoke about some great points, but one of the most interesting things that I thought he brought up was one of the most simplest. He said, people come to work, the telephones are on their desks. You leave them at home, the telephonic system isn't with them anymore. How can they run a call center if they have no telephone? Yeah, I mean, it's just really, really simple things like that really put you to understand what the current situation was. And then we moved into some other elements about, we used to go to the customer, now we have to become remote, right? And it's all the plans and effort they put in to be remote. And I'd like to bring Daniel in actually, because Daniel done an excellent piece of work over in the US, right? Which was really cool about all of the things that you were forced to do now, and whether you would keep them going after the COVID situation disappears, because it's been a great influence to your business. Sorry to put you on the spot, Daniel, but.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure what the question is. I appreciate the call out, Kieran.
No, the question is about, you know, the understanding you did with those 5 elements of the COVID situation that happened now, but the benefits that have come from the things that you've been forced to do, and will you keep doing them?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think what's one of the key pieces that we've seen that came out of this, but some of those elements, right, is around business continuity plans and the way that companies are starting to reassess the way they approach their customers. There was a great quote that, it may be, if it's in poor taste or not, that similar to what Kieran just said, but was never waste a good crisis, right? But the follow-on to that was that we need to use this time to find ways to make and build relationships. And that's, any CSO that's looking at things from that perspective, I think is poised to thrive moving forward, right? They're saying, okay, yes, they're acknowledging that we have a huge issue, but what are the ways that we can address it and not only adjust to the new normal, but also come out of this stronger? So, a lot of that is focused around customer relationships and how they're going to actually approach service in the future.